You clearly sharpen your knife, but when you use it again, the tomato gets crushed, the onion slips away, and right before service, the knife just does not feel quite right. Today, for beginners, I will explain knife sharpening in the easiest way possible and in a practical way. I will not make your head hurt with complicated theory. I will explain in the simplest way, and I will make it easy for you to follow right away. First, let me show you the result. Right now, this knife does not cut paper smoothly. It also slips on the surface of a tomato. But if you just fix the basics, it changes like this. This level of edge is something anyone can make if they learn the basic and practice a little. The key basics are angle control and deburring. There are usually 3 reasons why a knife still does not feel good even after sharpening. First, the knife itself is too soft. Second, the angle keeps changing while sharpening. Third, you made a burr but did not clean it up properly. I will not talk about the soft steel knife today. I will just focus on the 2 main things beginners struggle with the most when sharpening: the angles and deburring. So the important thing is not sharpening for a long time. The important thing is following the right order that actually makes the angle. If you understand this, you will get lost a lot less, even as a beginner. If the knife is very dull, it is better to go from coarse grit. For example, 320, 1000, and 5000. That is the kind of flow. If it is only for maintenance, starting at 1000 grit is often enough. The important point here is this: do not always start with the fine grit, because if the knife is very dull and you only use the fine grit, it takes too long time to build the edge again. And you must flatten the stone. This is not just a habit problem. If the sharpening stone is hollow in the middle like a dish, that is called dishing. In that state, the edge does not touch the stone evenly. So even if your angle is correct, the result becomes unstable. In other words, the stone must be flat for the edge to come out even. Next is the angle. This is the part of beginners struggle with the most. Usually, people recommend 15 degrees. A lot of people use things like finger height or coin thickness as a guide, but with that method, the angle can change a little every time. So I make a cut angle guide like this. If you cut the corner of the plastic card to the angle you want, it is easy to make. The angle stays much more consistent. And for beginners, it is also much easier to use. Why is this important? Because you are not grinding the whole face of the blade. In the end, you are working on the very thin edge tip. If the angle keeps changing, you spend more time sharpening, but the edge still not come out even. So as a beginner, do not try to go fast. Even if you go slow, your first goal should be to keep the same angle. Once you set the angle, go slowly now with steady pressure. Move so the whole edge touches evenly. The reason not to use too much force is simple. Pushing hard does not make sharp fast. Instead, your hand shakes, the contact becomes unstable, and the angle gets even less stable. If the force gathers in one area, the stone can wear down faster in that spot too. Especially near the tip, you need to lift the handle slightly, so the very end part of the knife can touch properly. If you miss this, the tip may not sharpen enough, or the tip shapes itself can be damaged. After a few passes, a very small pieces of metal will rise on the other side. That is the burr. Why do you need to check it? Because the burr is the sign that this side has actually reached the very edge. It does not just mean you rub a lot. It means the metal has actually moved all the way to the edge. Once the burr appears, flip the knife and do the same things on the other side. Here too, the important thing is not speed, it is accuracy. Do not push too hard on one side only. It is better to match both sides with similar feel. If you made a proper burr on both sides with a 320 grit, lightly clean both sides one after the other. Then move to 1000 grit. And then repeat the same process. Adjust the knife so the whole edge can touch the stone well. Keep a steady angle and rub. If the burr appears, match the other side the same way. Because you move to a finer grit, the burr will also be much smaller. Here you can choose. You can deburr and finish at 1000, or you can move to 5000 and make it smoother. Even if you finish at 1000, the edge will still be sharp enough. But instead of being very smooth, the edge will finish more like very fine teeth. So when you cut fatty ingredients or slippery ingredients, this can actually feel more comfortable sometimes. If you lightly check it on your fingernail, it will catch a little. That is because of the fine teeth. On the other hand, if you move to 5000 and finish there, the surface becomes cleaner. And the cut surface also comes out cleaner. At this stage, you may also not feel the burr, but it is still better to deburr fully until the end. Even a very tiny burr left behind can hurt the final sharpness. Lightly clean each side once, one after the other, or finish with the leather strop, and make sure the deburring is complete. Testing does not need to be hard. The easiest one is the paper test. And if you cut something with a slippery surface, like tomato or capsicum, you can feel the difference right away in real use too. If you cannot cut anything right now, check the light reflection. If the edge is sharp, there will be almost no light reflection. If part of it's dull, you may see a shiny line. If that happens, work a little more on that shiny part using the high grit stone you used last. If it still does not improve, and it means it was not sharpened enough from the start, then the right things to do is go back to a lower grade and build it again, step by step. If you watch it this far, you probably feel that beginner sharpening is not really a complicated skill. It is almost about matching the right order and the right standard. And just like sharpening the knife well, keeping that condition is also important. Most time, knife edges wear down during use, but if you store them badly, the edge can be also damaged even when you are not using it. When I worked as a chef, I often saw people just putting knives into wine boxes or stainless trays. Then the knives you worked hard to sharpen hit each other's, and the edge gets damaged again very easily. So I recommend storing them in a proper knife bag. This is our Hephais leather knife bag. It can hold up to 10 knives and tools, and it fits knives up to about 43 centimeters long. It also has a side pocket for things like thermometers or small tools. It is made with premium full-grain cow leather, so we paid attention in durability and feel in use. It also has the removable shoulder strap and a top handle, so it is designed to be easy to carry while moving around. I'll put a link below. Storage is important, but knife care does not end there, so you also need in-between care during use. When you want to keep the edge in shape during use, you don't need to take out the stone every time. At this point, a honing rod is useful. If the edge is not fully broken down, and the apex has only bent a little during use, or the condition has only dropped a little, then a honing rod alone can often bring it back enough. If you can tell the difference, you will avoid sharpening too much for no reason, and knife care becomes much easier too. So the stone is for rebuilding the edge, and in between, you need a separate kind of care to lightly clean up the condition. Some people do not prefer the honing rod, but from a chef's point of view, it is clearly a practical tool. If you use it properly, it can clearly reduce working fatigue and sharpening fatigue. Let me say it again. This is not a tool like a stone. It is closer to a tool that lightly cleans up the edge tip when it gets slightly out of the line during use. So if the knife is completely dull, you need to go back to the stone. But if the edge is still alive and only the condition has dropped a little, then the honing rod can be faster and more practical. Especially in a commercial kitchen when you need to reset the condition in short time, or you need to quickly clean up once before prep. This kind of in-between care is very useful. But here too, the important thing is not to do it hard and not to do it in rush. With the honing rod too, the key is to match the angle and clean it up lightly. If you push too hard or if the angle shakes, you can actually make the edge more unstable. Today's content was the most basic sharpening guide that even beginners can use right away. The key points are not hard. Choose the right starting grit, flatten the stone, keep the same angle, check the burr, clean it up at the end, test the edge, and for in-between care, use the honing rod. At every moment, You don't need to take out the sharpening stone first. If you can tell whether you should rebuild it with the sharpening stone or lightly clean it up with the honing rod, knife care becomes much easier. And if you want to organize and carry your knives and tools in professional way, please check our Hephais leather knife bag at the link below. It is more important to keep a good condition for a long time than to sharpen a lot again and again. Your goal is not to become a sharpening master. It is to make cooking more comfortable. Manage your knife in the smart way, and I hope this helps your cooking life. If this is helpful, please subscribe and like.